It's a really great little place just down by Berkeley, with also a fountain that's created out of big blocks. I also really love going to the market. Like, it never gets old. I've been going to the market for 22 years, and it still surprises me and delights me every time I go.
There's a lot of kids that I hang out with because there's a lot of kids in Esplanade and they like to go outside a lot. And I also love the park with the swings because sometimes I like to swing on it with the music and it's really relaxing.
I live in the Esplanade. First thing in the morning, I always hear the birds. I have a tree right outside my window. Kids, they, to me, sound like they share the same natural rhythms and tones of nature, which, again, with the birds, they kind of intertwine. Sometimes I hear in the distance drums being played at a church not too far from me. Sounds of people walking, vehicles on the street, the wind, the vibrations of the streetcars, and trucks. I mean, there's so many. I see myself as a whole person, a beacon. There's no real separation of any of my senses because ultimately they go to one spot in your brain, which is, to comprehend, right?
I live in Woodsworth Co-op, and I have lived here since the beginning of this community.
I live at David B. Archer Co-op. I've been living in the St. Lawrence area for 31 years. I'm 31 now, so 31 years.
I've lived here since 1996, so 22 years, and I'm never leaving, ever. So it's like the ideal place to live for me. I love how it feels like a village, like a small town in a big city, where there's a sense that there's just a very different feel in this area.
This was an experiment. It always was an experiment, the St. Lawrence neighborhood. It was an experiment in how the physical design of the buildings affected behavior, on-street behavior.
It's not something I can describe because it's a feeling to me. The feeling of community and knowing that you are in a safe place with the people you're around. I would love to stay here as long as I can. I really love the Esplanade. I feel like the diversity and the people living here really keeps me welcomed.
I like where I live, all right? So I live in a housing co-op. Now what a housing co-op is, it's the members of the co-op operate the building itself and manage all the affairs. So there's no profit motive. So the cost of renting there is actually the cost of operating and maintaining. So it's a fair way to provide housing.
My uncle was kind of like one of the first generations to actually grow up here, and I think that's why we have such as like a strong community, because people here try their hardest to make sure that this community is together. Harvard is really close to my school.
I know someone. Oh, where do you go now?
I go to St. Francis of Assisi.
Oh,
yeah.
the Catholic school?
Yeah, so it's really close. And then
Then I came back to Winnipeg for another 5 years. Okay. That was where Robert was born.
It's not like those kind of places where people just walk through and they don't say anything to each other. You only say hi to their neighbors. I don't know, because to some people it's like a weird idea that like these people bond just because of the fact that we all live on the same street, but it's kind of beyond that, where it's like it's not just because we live on the same street, it's because we like kind of come together on the same street, you know?
I mean, it would be outdoor. I can do track, indoor stuff, but again, just running around in circles, right? And then eventually you can get dizzy depending on the size of the track. But yeah, it'd be like on the street here on the sidewalk. I wasn't born blind. It's something that came out of an accident. I was living on my own when I was around 18 and lost my sight during around that time. You're not only just seeing through a different lens, but you're also addressing fear, right? Darkness is always associated with fear, but in my mind, I find darkness to be the supreme balance of all things. Everything is created out of darkness. You have to project your thoughts on paper as an architect. Even from birth in the womb, right? When you're in development, you're coming from a place of darkness. So it's perpetual, right? And that's when you start dealing with energy and spirituality and dealing with the metaphysical.
I think that diversity really helps in a really big way, because I think, especially as a kid growing up here, we just see each other as people, not as like these different things. We kind of introduce each other to each other's cultures in a way. Everyone's culture kind of shown on the Esplanade. So I am Ugandan, Japanese, and Bolivian. My mom is Japanese and Bolivian, and my dad is he was born in Uganda, but his family is Rwandan. So not only is this neighborhood also very diverse, but so is my family. And so being raised with different cultures and different ways, it's kind of like merging all of them and kind of finding your own identity in the middle.
My grandson, who has autism, as you know, is not very interested in language. So it's really fascinating because he's extremely expressive.
It's on already, I think.
I would very much like to be excluded from this narrative.
He's what they call echolalic, which means that he repeats a lot of what he hears and he's exposed to. So he'll either repeat kind of script phrases or song, and that kind of echoes what he's feeling.
Callum, why do you like music so much?
Because.
So I'm just curious, why do you love music?
Yeah, let me tell you something.
Yeah, tell me why you like it. Tell me in music why you like music.
Because we liked it.
What does music do for you?
Baby, I just found him away. We gonna be okay. It might be wild, but you know that we make it work. We're just kids caught up in a crazy world. Come on.
I see myself as that one kid in the corner. I wear a lot of black, but I like to express myself a lot. Like, our generation is the first generation to be brought in with electronics. I feel like a lot of kids are being, their eyes are being glued to screens, and there's always this craze with the internet and social media. And a lot of teens are wasting money and time on this type of trend of doing what other people want to do and not focusing on yourself. Who you are is when no one is looking. When you're by yourself, that's who you are.
to me, community really means like knowing your neighbors and knowing those around you. That's my definition of community. I think the fact that there's been a lot of people in my co-op, for example, that have lived there their entire lives and have seen myself and my friends grow up, for example, that's community.
One of the things I'm enjoying is the kids who are in my building that I know the best, and watching them grow from babies, and now they are like tall as trees. Watching the kids grow, it's again something that speaks to community. I don't have kids myself. I think it connects, the intergenerational mix connects us all to each other in a way so that no one group becomes estranged from each other. And one of the great things about kids is that they just ask the questions that everybody wants to ask, but have been taught not to. So kids will just say, so why are you using the chair? And go, why can't you walk? And what's wrong? And you answer their questions. They go, okay, great. And then they move on, and you just talk like people, until their parents come over and drag them away and shush them and apologize. And in that moment, they teach the kids how not to act around people with disabilities. And that perpetuates that whole stereotype.
I think that parents should allow their children to experience having blindfolds more often, because that also develops other aspects of their brain as well. You're expending your aura without even knowing it, because you're feeling everything around you. At the same time, your mind starts to speed up, where you're asking yourself a lot of questions: who, where, when, why, how. At the same time, you find your mind going hyperdrive. Once you allow that to slow down, then you become in another level of awareness, and then you can start to feel other things without fear. Martial arts, its fundamental is, based on, the number of movements, but its focus is based on chi, which is the mind-body spiritual link energy. I work mostly on katas, or forms, or what they call patterns.
Good. Front kick.
So I was away from it for at least 15 years or so. And now I'm a part of the program there at the community center, and most of the participants are kids between 6 and 12. We're developing a technique or a structure that could work for others who are blind to come.
So when we're here, as soon as we drop, right?
How we do that, it was basically through some dialogue, and of course some manual manipulation in terms of putting me in positions so I can feel out the position.
Disability is a social construct. My disability is created by the barriers in the environment around me. I don't have a disability coming here or going to the market, because it's level entry, there are automatic door openers, there's an elevator. So I don't have a disability here. I can get around just like anyone else. So I don't feel disabled. Because it is such an accessible area, there are more than your average percentage of people with disabilities living here. And because of that exposure, we are just neighbors. Like, nobody stares at you here. And then when you go somewhere, just like anyone else, and find out that you can't get there, and it feels like you get hit in the stomach, and it makes me cry. And it's feeling like excluded. It's like you are not even considered in the planning of something.
I notice that there's more development in terms of structures like buildings and stuff like that. I mean, the construction or development is so subtle, it just creeps in, right? Like, it's, I guess, a part of evolution.
As president of the Neighborhood Association, I came to understand how the neighborhood had been planned and how it had developed. And so it was a quite conscious decision to forbid high-rise development in this neighborhood, to make it all low-rise and medium-rise so that there were many people on the street.
There are some that are planning to come and build like a 40-story condo. That to me is disrespectful of what this neighborhood looks like, what this neighborhood is about. It's not just about packing people in an area. It's about actually building things that are useful and building things that are in line with what you see around the neighborhood.
Design is critical. We will never see anything like St. Lawrence in Toronto again. The profit motive that is behind high-rise development is now a recognized objective of the planning department of the city.
I think there's a real sense of people who live in condos, and then there's the other ones.
There's a ton of people that still live in my co-op and other co-ops that if they really wanted to, they could go. They're not stuck in the housing co-op. They're not stuck there. They actively choose to be part of that community.
And if you live in CCH or Toronto housing, there is an increasing stereotype that that's, the poor people. There's an us and them dichotomy.
It's political. In the 70s and 80s, the federal government was spending a lot of money on social housing, and that's where most of our social housing got built from.
I think that wonderful experiment that this area is, with the diversity of many layers that made everybody feel like they were equal, is being eroded by the presence of condos.
The market or the profit-driven development industry has taken over Toronto, and we can see that by the colossal impersonal condominium buildings that create neighborhoods that they all have a Starbucks and a Longo's or whatever.
to create change, first you make friends, and then you make change. Creating communities that use universal design to make it usable by everyone. Universal design isn't just about accessibility to disability, it's about usability for everyone.
And I also think it's important to support grassroots organizations and any organization that's really trying to advocate for public housing or really trying to advocate for mixed income housing. But I think it's more so about putting it on the forefront and actually showing that, hey, this works.
I found from quite a few people that I'm somewhat of an anomaly. I am one with dealing with blindness, but at the same time, I seem to thrive on trying to overcome these barriers.
I feel like the message that my dream is trying to tell me is to go out there. And I really want to be that person who people look as a good person, as a good role model. And I want to bring that sort of thing back to the community like years later and share it with everyone.
Your whole body is an instrument.